Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from SimpleProgrammer.com. So I thought I'd talk about a subject today that I haven't really heard very many people talk about. In fact, I don't know if I've really heard anyone really talk about this idea or this topic, but I suspect it's more of a common problem than most people realize. So this is for those of you that are trying to get in shape, trying to really get down to the super lean, low body fat percentage. I know a lot of people say, "Hey, John, why are you doing this?" I'm not going to talk about that today, but I definitely have always had the goal of, or wanted to basically achieve with my physique personally, whatever the best that I could, right? And for me, that's reaching a certain ideal that I have in my head. And I've always done this naturally, right? This is something that I believe that you kind of have to earn it. It's not just the aesthetic, right? It's also what it takes to get there. I think is part of this. So I'm always pushing myself, always trying to grow in multiple ways. This is definitely one of those areas or ways that I want to grow. But what I thought I'd talk about is sort of this: what happens to you when you start to get to these really low levels of body fat. And I think, again, this is going to be, some of you would call this bro science. Some of it is based on some real science, but I'm going to just give you my observations, right? And I do a lot of research, obviously, in the fitness space, right? I keep myself well read on the different developments, but I also do a lot of experimentation on myself, and that's where a lot of my conclusions come from. And then surprisingly, a lot of the things end up getting validated by tests. It's not always easy to do empirical studies when it comes to fitness because you don't have sample size. It's really hard to control variables and to really trust people that are self-recording once you have a perfect lab setting. So anyway, I'm basically at this point now where I'm pretty close to the lowest body fat that I've been at. And it's not super low. I mean, I'm sub 10% at this point. I'm probably going to drop down another couple of percent here. We'll see. It all depends on what look I get. I'll know when I'm at the point that I want to get. But I've sort of struggled at this point for a long time. I've gotten like right here and have ended up rebounding back. Not super heavy. As I've toned it down, I kept getting closer and closer to my ideal, but I can never quite reach it. And I'm going to tell you why I think that is, and some of the things that you can expect if you're going to go down this journey with me here, and you're going to try and do the same thing, or if you've been here and you've sort of fallen off. And I think that it's not necessarily. I think there is some degree. It's when you reach a certain level of body fat. And I'm going to talk from a guy's perspective because I don't know for a female how that even works, but basically I think that I think that primarily what I'm going to be talking about here is, and this is just my best guess, is when you're below sort of the set point of your body that it's trying to stay at. I think we all sort of have kind of metabolic triggers, like set points. Obviously we do, right? Because we have some kind of internal thermostat that's going to determine where we're at, where our body's trying to stay at, because it's trying to stay alive. I mean, generally it tries to balance out and tries to keep us in a homeostasis, right? But so anyway, so I think there's an element of that, and I also think there's an element of just a raw sort of science of what happens when you reach a certain body fat level. But all that to say, basically, what ends up happening when you reach a certain level is that you start to undergo some changes, and this is I'm going to tell you why I think that I've had this difficulty in the past, because these changes are sort of harsh, and I'm noticing them. And the reason why I'm noticing them is because every time I get here, I sort of fail and don't make it as far as I want to go, right? Like I said before. And I think it's due to these changes, and every time I get here, I'm noticing these changes more and more, and I'm starting to see that this is not a coincidence. There's something here that's actually working more than just metabolism changing, that's trying to prevent me from getting to where I want to get. And all of this is going to be speaking from a natural state, right? I think there's a lot of people, a lot of YouTubers out there, I'm not going to name names, but you'll see them, and they're achieving what they're achieving non-naturally, right? Some of them may be genetics. I don't think genetics has as much of a role as some people seem to think it does, but there's a lot of non-naturals that are getting their body fat down low, and I don't think they're struggling. I don't think they're having the same type of problems. So the first thing I'm going to tell you about is the psychological sort of thing, and I don't like to use the word depression very much because I don't want to call it depression, but there's definitely a noticeable lack of motivation, right? When I start to reach this point, I notice that everything starts to sort of drop off, right? I don't feel motivated to work. I don't feel motivated to work out. I don't feel motivated to do things. And the only thing you really feel motivated to do is to eat or to sleep. And that becomes a problem because it makes it really difficult. Because the thing is, like, when you have good motivation and you have a good mental state, a non-quote depressed state, what ends up happening is you've got ambitions, you've got goals, right, and you want to achieve them. But when you lack that, when you're out of that state, those ambitions disappear, and that general motivation, I'm not talking about specific motivation for a thing, but in general, maybe you could call it burnout, that starts to disappear. And when that disappears, it's really difficult to remember why you're doing what you're doing and to keep driving forward. And I think it's a psychological trick that your body plays in order to get you to stop doing what you're doing, to start eating, to go and get some more fat on you, because it worries that you're dying, right? As if your body could worry. But essentially, I think that's what's happening. But I definitely notice this, and I don't hear many people talk about this. I guess you could call it like a low body fat depression, but it's really just this state of non-motivation is what I would really call it here. So that's one thing that happens to you. And I think there's a bunch of psychological factors that play into this, not just the non-motivation, but just this difficulty of focusing. A lot of the kind of mental strength that you have starts to dissipate at this point in time. Another thing that happens, which will be sort of a surprise for some of you guys, which I think this is fairly well documented, but people don't really talk about this, is sex drive will drop down very low, which is sort of surprising, and it can be a little bit disheartening, right? Especially if you highly value that, right? Which I know a lot of you guys do. I certainly value it, but it drops. It's going to happen. I believe what's happening, and I'm trying to combat this, I believe that there's multiple factors. I believe one of the main factors is just that testosterone levels drop, right? I think that this is happening as a natural preservation. Again, if you're not taking something to prevent this from happening, it's going to happen. And I, in my diet program, and you'll see here when I release this program, once I've got it perfected here, I try to combat this in various ways by eating high-fat diets, taking zinc supplements. There's a bunch of different things that you can do to sort of combat this. I think there's also a mental aspect of this. I want to, if you know of a study, I swear I read this before, where like when a male becomes like the dominant or the alpha male in the animal kingdom, I think it was chimps where I read it, that they actually undergo hormonal changes and body changes as the testosterone increases. It makes sense, but I think we might be able to replicate that same state through some practices, some mental exercises, and some things that we could do. So that'd be an interesting aspect to a diet that I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about doing in a diet in order to raise that. But definitely you're going to see that happen. You're going to see testosterone dropping. You're going to see sex drive dropping, and that is another thing that's going to kind of trigger you to want to give up, to want to quit down this path. The other thing I'd say here is that, this one's obvious, but hunger increases quite a bit. And when I say hunger increases quite a bit, I mean quite a bit. I mean a lot more than what what happens when you just go without food. Because you know what, I could be, at like maybe like 12 or 13% body fat, and I could go without eating for like 2 days, and I'll be hungry, but I won't be ravenously, like super ravenously hungry like I am just going without. It becomes hard to fast until 5 every day when I start to reach this level. This is where it becomes really difficult because I become ravenously hungry. You definitely get the cravings for the food. All you want to do, or you're thinking about, is eating food. And when you think about it, about your body trying to preserve the state and keep you alive, it makes perfect sense. It makes sense that something like that would happen. So I definitely see that happening. Strength obviously starts to drop. I think that might be testosterone related, might be motivation related as well. But you'll definitely see that happen. And yeah, I mean, you just generally get into the state where it becomes really, really difficult to move on because you don't have the motivation. You're hungry. You're lacking the hormones. Again, this is all kind of speculative, growth science, if you will. But just based on my own observations from being here multiple times. Now, what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to push through this, and it's pretty hard to do. Hopefully I'll be successful. I plan on being successful. I'm not giving up this time. And I think part of it is because I'm aware of this. I prepared for this mentally ahead of time. I knew this was coming, and I'm going to drive through it anyway. So there's a couple of things I think also for you guys out there that have been watching some of my videos, especially on the guy series I did here on becoming more of a man and attracting a woman. That could be a benefit for you, especially also the pornography and masturbation video, if you watch that one. But the benefit would be is if you are having trouble as far as your physical attributes in attracting a female. Basically, if you're dropping down to a very low body fat percentage, your physique is probably improving at the same time that your sex drive is dropping. So it's probably going to help you at the same time to avoid the whole pornography issue. So you might get a double benefit from there. That might actually motivate you to drive to drive up to this point and past this point, because when you come out of this, right, you're going to be looking better, and you're going to have possibly lost that addiction, which could be good. So I think there's a benefit there. I just thought I was thinking about that, and I thought I'd throw that in as a side sort of benefit. So I always like to kill two birds with one stone, and so that's something to think about. I'm trying to think here, what else did I have to say about this topic? So yeah, so I'm gonna push through this, and I'm gonna come out the other end, and we'll see how it goes. I'll document if things get worse. I don't think they are. I think this is pretty much where you end up, and then I think you really got to fight through it. I haven't talked to many people that have talked about this. I haven't seen really people talking about it. I'm sure there's probably someone out there that's got information on this and has shared this experience. But I do think that a lot of people that get past this point are taking unnatural supplements, let's say, in order to get there. I think that's why you see so few people that are able to achieve this, is because your body, your mind, everything is working against you at this point. So I mean, I did this video on treading water, and this is kind of what was kind of triggering me into this mindset, is because I realized that what I'm basically going to have to do is kind of tread water here and keep on making little pushes forward as I drop a little bit more and a little bit more, and don't the tempting thing, the easy thing, is to like go overboard and to basically fly off the rails and lose it, and then you're going to be starting over again. And I'm kind of sick of starting over, to be honest, with this journey. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. I just thought I'd kind of share that and let you guys and gals know about what happens, at least from a guy's perspective, an honest perspective of what happens when you start to get to these low levels. So if you're going to do this, you might want to think about it. You might want to think about what's going to happen, and realize that like getting down from like 20% to 12%, that's actually not hard. Like you can get there pretty easy. But once you start to drop below that 12, you start to hit some of these effects, at least for me in my experience. And then once you start to hit below the 10, it starts to become extreme. Like you got to really be committed to this and plan this out if you're gonna do this, because everything, your willpower, your body, your mind is all going to be fighting against you to prevent you from achieving this. So it's new territory for me. We'll see what happens when I get down further as I keep on progressing here. And yeah, I don't know, it's an interesting experiment. I always like to challenge myself and grow this way. This is one of those areas I feel like I haven't conquered yet, even though I've conquered a lot of things in the fitness area and willpower and mental discipline. But yeah, I haven't quite conquered this to the level that I want to, but I'm gonna do it this time. That's the plan, at least. So anyway, that's it for this video. If you've got some ideas, some suggestions, if you've got experience you want to share about this, again, I'm looking for that study as well. But if you've got an experience where you've been able to accomplish this and you've gone through the similar experience, or you've got some things that you've been able to do that has helped you, definitely leave a comment. Let me know if you want to do a response video. That'd be cool as well. But yeah, hopefully you found this interesting, and if you like this channel, you want to get some more updates, definitely subscribe. And like I said, I do have a fitness product that will be coming out here. I'm going to basically be putting together, and let me get your thoughts and ideas on this, but I'm basically going to be putting together a diet fitness program that is basically designed to be like, okay, if not easy, right? But if you were willing to do whatever it takes, and you're willing to work as hard as possible, what is the optimal thing that you could do, not making it easy, but like 100% compliance? Like, what is the fastest, most optimal thing that you could do that would basically build you the aesthetic physique that you want, basically to lose fat, gain muscle, get in shape, and develop the aesthetic type of physique that you want. And I'm basically, it's going to involve eating one meal a day. It's going to involve a bunch of hard workouts. But I'm putting that together based on my years of experience in trying to optimize this and what I'm doing right now. So I'm sort of going through it, guinea pigging it here, because I believe that this is something that can actually push you through this point and get you through to the other side. Because not only are you fighting the mental game as well here, but there's a physical. Your body is, I haven't even really talked about this, but physically it's fighting further fat loss, and you've got to sort of figure out how to combat that, so that when you lose weight, you're not losing 90% muscle and 10% fat, because you'll just shrivel up. So I've got that sort of dialed in, and that's part of this program. I'm working on the mental side of it right now and optimizing that, but I'll definitely be putting that out. Let me know if you're interested, and yeah, so that's it. Long video, but hopefully you found it useful. Take care.